We've had certainly and throughout this process strong leadership from both the Department of Energy as well as the NPC. And from the DOE standpoint, the Deputy Secretary, who's here today, has served as the study committee co-chair on this. This first started out with Dan Poneman. I don't believe he's here with us today. I saw him yesterday evening, and we certainly appreciate his efforts. And then, of course, Liz Sherwood-Randall has continued on. Once again, I want to thank Marvin Odom for chairing this study and helping to launch the addendum as we got started. So thank you again, Marvin, for your efforts. And thank you to everyone who's been involved in this study. So with that, perhaps I know you've already gotten started on the Q&A already, but if I could, maybe just Madam Deputy Secretary, is to ask you to perhaps provide some remarks on not only this and other topics that you'd like to cover.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Chuck, and to Rex, and to Marshall, and to Phil, my partner in this endeavor. Initially, my earliest experience at DOE in October of 2014 was actually shaped by my engagement with the NPC, because this study, as you noted, was underway. And in the first month, I recall having the opportunity to be briefed by Marshall and his team on what was being generated for completion within a very short time frame. So I began to learn about what had been done on this front as it was entering into the final drafting process. We had the opportunity to comment on it, and of course it was published in December. But it was an initiation to the critical partnership that we share, and it fit into a template that I brought to the role of Deputy Secretary because I did come out of the national security space, and so you were certainly knocking on an open door with me in terms of my interest in prioritizing this work across the energy sector. This effort on emergency preparedness and response has been one of my highest priorities during the time I've had the privilege of serving in this role. And I certainly, as I just noted in response to Jason's question, intend to make sure that my successor understands the imperative of sustaining and indeed increasing the level of effort on this front, working closely with industry partners. So I'll make a few remarks here broadly and then more specifically on this work we're doing together. As you know, there is growing interdependence in our energy infrastructure. And this presents vulnerabilities and is part of the reason that we've placed such a strong emphasis on the importance of cross-sectoral exercises. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I've been asked to talk with you today on this topic and how DOE is responding to the 2014 report and the addendum that we were briefed on by Phil. But I want to put this work into a broader context of what we are seeing in terms of the nation's energy security. We are working on investing in the nation's energy security far into the future, and that's something, of course, that the oil and gas sector does as well. You have long time horizons. I want to talk about how we're thinking about that security because our thinking has changed as the world has changed, and also discuss our efforts to ensure that our supplies and infrastructure are safe from a wide range of emerging threats, both physical and natural, man-made, and the result of natural developments, although some of the natural developments may also be man-made. Finally, I'll give an overview of what we're doing to prepare for the threats of the future, whether they come from people or from nature or from our aging infrastructure. For me, formatively, when I thought about energy security, it was about oil supply. And I think that's probably true for many of you as well. Way back when I was working on my Oxford doctoral thesis, my topic was stimulated by the fact that there were threats to access to the oil that we depended on that came through the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. And so when I think about what has happened to our definition of energy security over the intervening decades, we can consider several major transformations that have broadened our definition considerably. Recent events, especially in Europe, have highlighted the need for an expanded view of energy security, one that more broadly encompasses the healthy operation of our energy systems and those of our allies and important trading partners. So of course, access to secure supplies is as central as ever, but we're also thinking about new ways to address the challenges and opportunities that we face in strengthening our nation's energy security. In 2014 in Rome, Secretary Moniz joined with G7 energy ministers and the EU and endorsed a set of principles for a modern and collective definition of energy security, and I'll just run through those briefly. They lay out a definition of energy security that meets 21st century challenges, including a shared interest in transparent, competitive markets, a diversity of fuels, routes, and supplies, critically, and in reducing global greenhouse gas emissions. They also highlight the need to invest in research, development, and especially in the deployment of clean energy technologies, in energy efficiency, in energy systems resilience and emergency management systems, and in modernized infrastructure. All of that is how we define energy security today. Our close relationship with industry is vital to our efforts with our partners to protect the security of our energy infrastructure. And this relationship has grown up through our work with the sector coordinating councils, the expertise at DOE's national laboratories, and the emergency authorities that we have been given, including most recently the FAST Act. What ties all of this together is what Secretary Moniz has focused intensively on, and that is our capacity for innovation. And he's going to join us shortly to speak to you further on that front. The rise in natural and man-made threats in recent years has highlighted vulnerabilities to our infrastructure. We've already spoken about some of that this morning. Because of these threats, we have been looking at ways to strengthen and improve our emergency management program at DOE. And of course, you have contributed significantly to that endeavor. We've made important changes in the department. Phil has actually described a lot of this to you, and I just want to note it's very unusual for a federal department to be complemented by external partners. So I appreciate that you've acknowledged the work we've done inside the department to improve how our team works to respond to disasters and how our team coordinates with federal, state, and local governments, and most importantly with industry during emergencies. Now, you can look at the glass half full or half empty. I, of course, see all the things we still need to do, but I will say that we have come a long way just in my short time at the department. We have taken significant steps to improve our program by creating this unified command structure within the department. The new structure has increased cooperation and coordination across the Department of Energy, and that's no mean feat. From our energy infrastructure team to our National Nuclear Security Administration, which has unique responsibilities for nuclear and radiological events. This ensures that the capabilities of our entire department can be brought to bear in the face of any threat. We've also made a number of changes to the team that is responsible for responding to the disasters and emergencies that impact infrastructure. With regard to the maintenance of an effective response organization that Phil noted, we did follow your recommendation and change the structure of our team so that it more closely aligns with the National Incident Management System, or NIMS, which is used by many of our partners in government and industry. And so we know that by using NIMS, we can more easily coordinate with our partners and in turn be more effective in our response mission. We've exercised this new structure twice, first during ClearPath in April, and then again during Cascadia Rising in June, in which you participated. in both of those exercises. Those exercises provided valuable information about how we can improve performance. And here I would just echo what Phil said. The reason we exercise is because we learn where the gaps are, where the failures are, where the things are that we didn't think about. And of course, we want to know those things in an exercise, not in a real-world event. For example, during ClearPath, we noted the DOE team at headquarters would face significant technology and staffing challenges in the event of a prolonged response to a catastrophic event, just what you questioned us about. Our Emergency Operations Center is relatively small, and it's in need of significant infrastructure and technology updates. We've been working with Congress to address these issues and improve our ability to coordinate and plan, including through the construction of a consolidated emergency operations center that will allow the UCS to operate out of a single location. We've also integrated EIA into our response team, as Phil noted, so we can have the benefit of their expertise on issues facing the oil and natural gas industry. This one change, which was recommended in the 2014 report, has significantly improved our effectiveness. EIA experts have been particularly useful in reaching out to oil companies, providing fuel stock information, and providing us analyses in real time. We just saw how valuable their expertise was in our response to Typhoon Soudelor, which caused widespread damage in the northern Mariana Islands. The island of Saipan, which was significantly impacted, depends heavily on fuel oil for power generation. This is lovely. Our EIA experts helped us coordinate directly with industry, so we had visibility on efforts to rebuild key infrastructure on the island and critical information about fuel shipments to the island. In addition to these structural changes, we also have been strengthening our partnerships on emergency response with states, and that is a critical piece of our national response effort. In February, Secretary Moniz signed an agreement, the Energy Emergency Assurance Coordinators Agreement, with a number of national associations. These included the National Association of State Energy Officials, the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, the National Governors Association, and the National Emergency Management Association. This agreement, which is an update of an agreement that was 20 years old, will improve energy emergency coordination and capabilities across the country. It also reflects the significant improvements in technology and changes in the roles and responsibilities of partners that have occurred over the past 20 years. We use this and other joint agreements to improve state and local emergency preparedness by funding workshops, providing technical assistance, and conducting exercises. We recently used this network to provide daily updates on bulk power system reliability in response to the forecasted record high temperatures that the country has experienced this month. These updates enabled states to better plan support for citizens who might face distress given extreme heat conditions. All of these changes have improved our emergency management program. What really matters, of course, is that in practice that they work. And so, as we've discussed, what's most important is that we exercise together. I want to thank everybody for their participation in these exercises and for the resources that are committed to doing so. Exercises are not cheap in terms of human resources, nor in the support that's necessary financially to make them real. And so we want to say how pleased we are that we've been able to strengthen the ClearPath exercise to make it a more meaningful experience for those who participate in it, and to ensure that the department, our federal partners, and industry can work more effectively together in a crisis. Phil, thanks to you for your hard work on this, and to the members of the NPC's whole emergency preparedness working group for your work with our Office of Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability in the planning of the 2016 ClearPath exercise. We've heard from many people that this was the most valuable exercise that we've done to date, and that is a great example of what we need to sustain far out into the future. I want to take note of what you commented on with regard to the need to do more preparatory work for regulatory relief. I heard this at one of our initial meetings in Houston. I remember Bill White, former Houston mayor, raising this issue in the context of the experience he had in Hurricane Katrina. And there I would say I don't think we have gotten far enough. We also are having a similar dialogue with the electricity sector on these challenges. And so I think we should leave in place a plan to get stuff done on this front rather than just admire the problem, because it is work that is hard to do. We have to work with Congress on it. And to have a list, as you've indicated, that API has provided should give us the content that we can begin that dialogue around with congressional partners. We will continue to test and refine our systems, and in December, I think you know that we and the National Association of State Energy Officials are planning to host a regional exercise with partners from the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic that will test state-level procedures and responses. It will include not only state energy officials, but emergency managers, regulators, and industry at the state level. It will also include, importantly, a cybersecurity component. And you know that testing this element of our preparedness, our resilience first, and then our preparedness is becoming increasingly important. In December's exercise, we plan to test state and regional responses to a cyber event that quickly cascades and that therefore creates consequences in the physical world. In addition to the work we're doing internally, Congress and the administration are also working together to improve DOE's ability to ensure our nation's energy security and respond to emergencies. And there I mentioned the FAST Act, which will in part improve the resilience of our supply by granting the Secretary of Energy broad authority to issue emergency orders to protect or restore critical electric infrastructure when the President identifies a grid security emergency. Coupled with the new Presidential Policy Directive 41 that was rolled out this week, United States Cyber Incident Coordination, it will help us make significant strides in organizing the federal government's response to significant cyber incidents. This PPD reflects the reality that no single agency possesses all of the authorities, capabilities, and expertise to unilaterally deal with a significant cyber incident. I'd also note we recently announced $15 million, subject to congressional appropriations, in new funding to support efforts by the American Public Power Association and the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association to enhance the culture of cybersecurity among its members. Now, that may not sound like a lot of money, but these organizations have limited resources at their disposal to enhance their resiliency in the face of cyber threats. And so we know that we can help them with that funding to put toward developing security tools and educational resources, updating guidelines, and training on common strategies for improving cyber and physical security. Now, we can't rest on these accomplishments, and those of you who've worked closely with DOE know that we have this extraordinary network of 17 national laboratories, and we need to find more ways to work to include new threat areas such as cyberspace and do research and development across the range of challenges that we will face in the future. So in the support that we have available to us in the department to the innovation required to prepare us for the future, we are working on a number of initiatives to strengthen our energy resilience far out into that future. For example, following the massive gas leak several months ago at the Aliso Canyon underground gas storage facility in my native California, DOE commissioned some of the national labs to examine safety issues associated with existing oil and gas wells and related underground storage facilities. We will continue to support industry in the development of solutions using the resources of our national labs. Since 2010, we've actually invested more than $210 million in collaborative cybersecurity research and development projects among industry universities and our national labs. These investments have already produced important results. For example, the Honeywell-led Role-Based Access Control project. This project created role-based access control technology for a Honeywell product suite. This is an energy delivery control system that is used extensively within the oil and gas industry today. The new technology limits access Good morning, Secretary Moniz. No, we have a place for you up here, of course. This new technology limits access to the least to allow us to perform a given task, helping to reduce the risk of unauthorized access, including by an insider. And Sandia National Laboratory has a cybersecurity research partnership with Chevron to develop a technology that will change the control system configuration moment by moment. This is especially exciting because it will make it very difficult for an adversary to map the network or stage an attack. It also makes it easier for responders to isolate malicious actors if they do gain access. I know that you have focused on cybersecurity in the Oil and Natural Gas Subsector Coordinating Council through your cybersecurity working group, where you're working with the government across the industry to develop effective cybersecurity strategies and enhance communication. At the top of my remarks, I spoke a little bit about the interdependencies of our energy systems, and so I'd like to take a moment here to say a few words about that, because it has significant implications for the energy sector writ large. Part of energy security includes building resilience in our energy infrastructure. Our department's Grid Modernization Initiative represents a comprehensive effort to help shape the future of the nation's grid and solve the challenges of integrating conventional and renewable resources while ensuring that the grid is resilient and secure and can withstand growing cybersecurity and climate challenges. This public-private partnership among our national laboratories, industry, academia, and state and local government agencies will help strengthen our ongoing efforts to improve our electrical infrastructure. Secretary Moniz announced in January that DOE will spend $220 million over 3 years on GMI projects with our labs, including projects to improve security of distribution systems and assess energy and critical infrastructure vulnerabilities to identify cost-effective options to improve the resiliency of both the electrical grid infrastructure and the communities that support it. In addition, the administration is working on a second installment of the Quadrennial Energy Review, which focuses on the electricity system. And I think I just saw Melanie Kenderdine, who leads this effort, join us. One theme will be the growing electrification of our economy and the increasing interdependencies among energy sectors. As you know, the electricity sector is increasingly reliant on natural gas as a fuel for power generation. But the natural gas and liquid fuels infrastructure is increasingly being electrified. For example, the use of compressors in cities with air quality issues. And threats to the electricity system, both natural and as a result of human activity, are evolving. So QER 1.2 will examine how these threats to one sector may lead to vulnerabilities in our overall national security and how we can make the electricity system more resilient to changing conditions in order to maintain reliable service to the American people. As an industry that's likely to be affected by threats to the grid, we will welcome your insights in this area. And there I want to note we'd be very happy to set up a briefing for interested members of the NPC on the QER so that we might engage with you in a dialogue that will inform our recommendations. So in closing, I want to note again how important our cooperation is. Many of the changes that I mentioned this morning have one common thread: our partnership with the NPC and with the oil and natural gas sector. We thank you for your ongoing advice and support in our work. And there I want to note one concrete outcome in closing of our joint efforts. In the course of the Cascadia Rising and ClearPath exercises, we heard from many of our partners in industry that they have a critical need for assistance with damage assessments, particularly for roads, bridges, ports, and rail lines. These assessments are a crucial part of any response mission and allow us to confirm which transportation corridors are open and safe for use for response and recovery efforts. During ClearPath, several utility CEOs and I discussed whether drones would help with these efforts. Based on that conversation, we have begun a dialogue with the Federal Aviation Administration on the role that drones can play in damage assessments in the energy sector. And last week, the President signed the FAA authorization bill, which contained a provision to expedite the authorization of safe unmanned aircraft system operations in support of service restoration efforts of utilities. So thank you again for your partnership and for all that you've done and will continue to do to make our great nation more energy secure. Thanks.
Well, Liz, thank you very much. We're honored to have you with us this morning, but I think more importantly, in working with you and your team throughout both the emergency preparedness as well as the Arctic studies, that you've really shown an incredible commitment, and I know that with the work, especially as we've been working on emergency preparedness, you've been extremely committed to make sure that this is something that continues on and that it just doesn't become something that we worked on together back in 2014, 15, and 16, and then it goes away, that this is really something that's going to be resilient and grow and build on it. So thank you. I think, you know, it's making an important contribution to this country and our industry and government and being able to respond to emergencies. So I really appreciate your commitment to that.